We've all dreamed of going on a thrilling and exciting chase at least once. Some of us have made that dream a reality, and some of us have not. So in this video, I want to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it if you ever find yourself in a high-speed chase. Disclaimer, the content of this video is purely for entertainment purposes. I do not condone or encourage any illegal activities, including attempting to outrun the police. Such actions are extremely dangerous and can result in serious legal consequences, injury, or death. Always obey the traffic laws and respect law enforcement. Please stay safe and drive responsibly. Okay, if you want to successfully evade the police, there is a long list of instructions that you have to carefully follow. To make this easier for you guys, we're going to break this video down into 3 parts: the before, the during, and the after. As you can probably guess, the before is just going to be everything you need to have in check prior to the chase. How prepared you are, how well you've planned it, and just everything else under that umbrella. The next segment is going to be what you need to be aware of during the chase. We're going to cover everything from certain tactics and maneuvers that many people use to lessen their chances of being caught. Finally, we're going to talk about the after. What exactly do you need to do after you've escaped? Just trust me, there has been countless stories of people getting caught after evading, so it's better to be safe. Again, I want to remind you guys that this video is merely for entertainment purposes. If you're ever lit up, pull over because it's not worth the risks. Okay, let's start this video with the before. There's a lot of things that you must know and have in check before ever considering even going on a high-speed chase. So if you can check every single thing on this list off, you are ready. If you can't, pull over. First, let's talk about probably the most obvious question. How fast does your car have to be to pull this off? Okay, there isn't one answer to this question, but it largely depends on the area in which you reside in. As you know, every country uses a different car for their police. I will recommend doing a quick Google search of what car your country's police drives. If you're from the UAE, click off this video because you're not going to be successful. Since I'm from the United States, I'll be using the Dodge Charger for reference. In the US, there's 2 different trims that the cops use, the 3.6 liter V6 and the 5.7 liter V8. And to be on the safer side of things, let's just assume the Charger chasing us is the V8 version. Okay, exactly how powerful does your car need to be? Well, that's not the question you should be asking, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let's talk about the competition's performance. The Dodge Charger Pursuit has a 5.7 liter Hemi V8 which produces 370 horsepower. You might be thinking that's a lot, but hold on. The Charger weighs about 4,400 pounds, which is extremely heavy. That lets it get from 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds and a top speed of 150 miles per hour. What does this mean? This means that you don't need a Bugatti to outrun the cops. Something with a better power to weight ratio and preferably a higher top speed, we'll get to that later, will do just fine. Speaking of Bugattis, I'm sure many of you are thinking that a hypercar will be the best and most efficient way to evade the cops. And that brings me to my next topic. How well does the car you chose blend in? Okay, there's a reason you don't ever see hypercars going on chases. Because 1, they'll most likely run out of gas in 3 minutes, and 2, they cannot escape even after they get away. It's almost impossible to lay low in a Koenigsegg, but I'm assuming nobody watching this video has a Koenigsegg, so let's move on. Next point I want to talk about is how good of a driver you are, your skills. If you have the perfect car to escape and yet you can't drive, you're cooked. Vice versa, if you have a decent or even underpowered car, the right driver can still escape. So how do you know how good of a driver you are? First, how well do you know your car? If you're not familiar with the car you're driving, running from the police should never cross your mind. You need to know how good your brakes are, the dimensions of your car, how well it turns, and so on. I promise you, there's nothing more embarrassing than crashing in the middle of a chase simply because you couldn't even handle your own car. Take your car to the track or a back road and just push it to its absolute limit. Familiarize yourself with it every day and you'll be fine. Another thing that you must make sure you know before a chase is your environment. It's not completely impossible to be successful in a city that you're not familiar with, but knowing your roads and planning your routes ahead is gonna increase your success by a lot more. What you guys have to understand is that you need to make the police chase last as short as possible. Why? Because the longer it lasts, the more opportunities that the cops have to go harder. I'm talking spike traps, roadblocks, and oh yeah, helicopters. If you're ever on a chase and you look up to see a helicopter, you're finished. I feel like another important part that most people overlook is how mentally prepared you are. Guys, this is gonna be a decision that could drastically change your life. It could be the difference between a regular traffic stop and a mistake that could cost you literally everything. So you have to know that you genuinely want to do this. If you're having second thoughts, pull over, my friend. It's not worth your life. And lastly, you need to know the general stuff, like the environmental conditions, how well your car has been maintained, and so on. If you have all those checked, you're almost ready. Before we actually move on to what to do during the chase, let's talk about what you need to know the moment before the chase happens. You just got lit up and you're about to make a decision if you should pull over or run. If you plan on running, make sure these 3 things are in check. Number 1, you have no license plate or it's altered in some some way, but make sure you have your actual plates on you though. This is common sense. There is no reason you should ever run with your actual plates on. Number 2, you have a full tank of gas. It will be a shame if you ran out of gas mid-chase. Finally, you're on the highway, or there's a highway nearby. If you don't have all 3 of these necessities checked, pull over. Okay, so you've made the decision to run. At this point, there is no turning back, my friend. You have to go. Don't worry, as much pressure as it is, all that matters is that you stay calm. Staying calm in a situation like this is only going to increase your percentages drastically. At this point, there's multiple techniques that you can use to your advantage. Some people use gadgets to their advantages, whether that's jammers, kill switches made for the brake lights, night vision, blah blah blah, you get the point. You do not need these, but they are bonuses. People who don't have access to these gadgets just rely solely on one thing, and that's making the gap between them and the cop as large as possible. This is where the car you choose will be important. This works best on an empty highway, so the time of the day you choose to run is also going to be important. I forgot to mention that earlier. You want to make the gap between you and the cop as large as possible, as quickly as possible. Many people also go with the trickery method, which is pulling over, waiting for the cop to get out, and then pulling off. I don't advise this method because you don't want to actually give the cops any time to call backup in, so just go. What do you do after you've put a large gap on the cop and you can't actually see them in your rearview mirror? You'd want to get off the highway, but not as quick as you think. You always want to skip the first 2 exits because you wouldn't want to be greeted by cops waiting for you as soon as you get off, because then you got to start all over. Skip the first 2 exits you see and then take the 3rd. And after you take the 3rd exit, congrats, the hard part is over, but it's not all over. You want to blend in as much as possible, but since you have no plates, your best bet is to find a parking garage or a crowded parking lot and just park your car. Turn it off and just let it be. The chances a cop will find your car in a parking lot are very little to none. Wait about an hour to be safe and then take your car to a spot where you're sure there's no security cameras. Now remember when I said you should have your real plate on you? This is the part where if you can, you screw it back on. If you don't have your plate with you, now you just gotta make it back home and pray nobody notices you. And also try to get some gas just in case something does end up happening. Okay, cool, you've made it home, you can't believe what you just did, your heart is beating fast, that's normal. At least you're a free man. Go get some rest because the next day, there's still a lot of work to be done. Before I move on to the after portion of the video, I'm sure a lot of you guys are enjoying, and there's no better way to show me support than liking and subscribing. It helps me a ton, and I do have a Patreon, which the link would be in the description. Okay, you wake up and still in shock of the events that went on last night. Now there's a checklist to follow to make sure that you are completely off the grid. First thing, if you didn't replace your plates already, make sure your normal ones are back on. Secondly, if you have a distinctive wrap, take it off. If you don't have a wrap, give your car a nice detail. You'd be surprised how far a clean car can go. Although I know this next one won't be possible for a lot of people, but if you can, move location. It's not a must, but it's just something to consider. And lastly, I'm sure you're gonna be excited to tell all your friends and family about how you just outran the cops, but keep your mouth shut unless it's with a legal advisor. You don't really want anyone to know that you're actually committing a crime, because that never ends well. If you want to watch a video on a man who took his escapes to social media, click up here. Remember to take it easy, drive safe, and until next time, my friends.